Ed Buck is a Democratic activist and campaign donor. You might have heard his name before, but probably not for those two qualifiers. It's for something far darker, something far more dangerous. His house has, over the past few years, been an incredibly dangerous sort of place. And there's been an investigation going on to find out why two individuals have died while with Ed Buck. We want to learn more about this incredibly strange story. So we're joined now by journalist and advocate Jasmine Canik. Jasmine, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us and for doing an incredible amount of work over a couple of years to find out what's going on here. So what do people need to know about Ed Buck?
Well, what people need to know is that Ed Buck is a major donor to the Democratic Party, particularly here in California. He is a well-known HIV/AIDS advocate, activist, as well as an animal activist. And he's also a man who, within the past 2 years, 16 months apart, had two Black gay men die in his house of crystal meth overdoses. The first young man died in July 2017. His name was Jamel Moore. When he died, the sheriff's department just took Ed Buck's word for what happened, and that was it. They closed the case. It wasn't until I published Jamel Moore's journal where he talked about Ed Buck being the first one to give him meth and to get him hooked on meth and all the things that Ed Buck was doing, that the sheriff's department was forced to open a homicide investigation 19 days later. So all the evidence, everything was gone. So at the end of the year meaning from July 2017 to July 2018, the DA's office decided that they just didn't have enough evidence to charge Ed Buck with anything, even though close to a dozen young Black gay men had come forward with videos and photos and text messages and screenshots, detailing what had happened to them at Ed Buck's house. The DA's office still didn't do anything. And that was July 2018. January of this year, Timothy Dean died in Ed Buck's apartment of a crystal meth overdose on the same mattress that was on the floor of the same apartment. It was surreal, but it was something that we had said to the district attorney here in Los Angeles and to law enforcement was bound to happen if the man wasn't stopped.
Yeah, a tragedy that feels like could have been averted if people in a position of power had taken it seriously. So after the first individual died, eventually nothing legal happens. This year, a second individual dies. Is it being taken more seriously? Is there the chance that there will be something like justice in this case?
I'm hopeful. I have to, try to remain somewhat hopeful. You need to do that in this kind of work, right? So we're in this weird waiting stage again, waiting to figure out what the district attorney's office is going to do, if anything. Yesterday, I spent a lot of time talking about the situation with Mac Miller and the person who was charged, because it was a very similar situation with the Ed Buck case. In both of the deaths, there was an enormous amount of drugs found, everything from cocaine to heroin to meth, everything. And they still did not charge Ed Buck with anything. As a matter of fact, through Ed Buck's attorney, he said that those men brought all of those drugs over to his apartment. So, we're waiting to see Jamel Moore's mother, Miss Nixon. She has filed a civil lawsuit against Ed Buck in the death of her son. I know that Timothy Dean's family is also considering doing the same thing. And simply this is because, we have to get justice one way or the other, right? If we can't get justice through the criminal court system, because the lives of Black gay men, Black gay men who may be sex workers and homeless and poor are not as important as the lives of other people, then we have to try to get that justice through the civil court system.
Yeah. It seems, looking at this from an outsider, it just seems insane, the entire thing that I would have to imagine that if the same thing had happened to me, for instance, you don't get one free death on your watch, let alone two free deaths. And look, so we know that across the country, there are multiple justice systems. Depending on how much money you have, you might get one or the other. Does it feel like this is just a clear case where the deaths, let alone also just the drugs being there and it happening multiple times, is this just an instance of this is a well-connected, powerful, influential person?
Yes, exactly. So that's something I've been fighting with the Democratic Party about as well, me being a Democrat. It's like, as a Black woman, as a Black person, I cannot belong to a party that can look the other way when these things happen because a major donor of yours is involved, right? And at the time that Jamel Moore died, Ed Buck's best friend was the chair of the California Democratic Party. And the California Democratic Party is the largest Democratic organization outside of DC. So, it's created a myriad of issues and problems and sort of put a spotlight on the intersection of, exactly how much do Black lives matter, particularly when we're talking about a major donor who has given over $500,000 in the last 7 to 8 years to candidates and elected officials here in Los Angeles. So yeah, but it's not like you stop. We have to keep doing this because when I tell people that another young Black gay man can die at Ed Buck's house at any moment, that is not a joke. Yeah. That is serious because he has not stopped his behavior.
And so would you say it's fair to say that you do fear that if there aren't consequences, that we will inevitably see a third case like this?
Oh, absolutely. I was clear about that in July of 2018. I'm clear about that today in 2019. This is a man who has not stopped the same predatory behavior that he was engaging in prior to Jamel Moore's death. I have young men that reach out to me all of the time, saying, oh, this man just tried to pick me up on this website, or this man just tried to pick me up here. So he's still engaging in the same behavior. His neighbors contact me all the time and let me know, like, look, he just brought someone else in. He's doing this again.
That is, the entire case so difficult to understand, that 2 people die on your watch and you're thirsty for more. Absolutely insane. Journalist Jasmine Canik, thank you so much for joining us and breaking down the case.
Thank you so much for having me.
For more political news, breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/The Damage Report. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.